30 women walked into that room that night. Every single one of them looked at him first. That was the thing nobody talked about in his world. The way a room reorganized itself the moment Taro Min entered it. Not loudly. Nothing in his world happened loudly. It was a quieter recalibration, shoulders shifting, conversations thinning, eyes moving toward him the way compass needles move toward north, involuntary, helpless, and completely predictable. He had stopped counting the entrances years ago. They blurred together, the practiced pause at the threshold, the dress chosen with him in mind, the eyes that found him before they found anyone or anything else in the room. He recognized the performance the way a man recognizes a song he has heard so many times it stopped having meaning. The melody was still technically there. He simply could not feel it anymore. The woman in red had introduced herself twice. He had nodded both times and retained nothing. The woman near the bar had laughed at something he said that was not intended to be funny. A half beat too long, her eyes checking his face to measure the landing. The one who had been positioned near the entrance when he arrived, the one whose arrival had clearly been timed to coincide with his, had touched his arm when she spoke and left her hand there a second longer than the conversation required. He felt none of it. Tino Bay appeared at his right shoulder exactly when he needed him to. That was the thing about Tino. He never had to be summoned. He read the precise moment when Taro's patience had reached its architectural limit and appeared there like a door opening onto an exit. "Car is ready." Taro set his untouched champagne on a passing tray and walked toward the exit without a word to anyone. Behind him, the room exhaled. In the car, Tano did not speak. This was one of the many reasons Taro had kept him close for 12 years. Tano Bay understood that silence was not emptiness. It was the most honest form of company available. The city moved past the window in streaks of neon and wet asphalt. Seoul at this hour was a different creature from the city that performed itself in daylight. At night, it showed its actual face. The hunger, the negotiation, the beautiful and relentless machinery of people wanting things from each other. Taro watched it and felt nothing in particular. That was becoming a pattern he had stopped pretending not to notice. 30 women in that room, all of them looking, none of them landing. He pressed 2 fingers to the bridge of his nose and closed his eyes for the length of a single breath. Tomorrow he was walking the new building. Hansung Tower had been empty for 11 months before the acquisition finalized. 41 floors of steel, glass, and silence sitting in the middle of central Seoul like a held breath. Taro's legal team had taken 4 months to untangle the previous ownership. His financial team had taken 3 more to restructure the acquisition correctly. He had waited without impatience. He was exceptional at waiting. Waiting was simply pressure applied to time, and time, in his experience, always broke before he did. The assessment team had been cleared to begin at 7. 9 specialists, contracted through a firm his operations manager had vetted, structural engineers. Taro walked the upper floors at 7:45, unannounced. He always came unannounced. The version of a space that existed before people knew he was coming was the only honest version worth seeing. He stepped out of the elevator onto the 24th floor and immediately felt the team feel him. It happened the same way it always happened. One technician near the window straightened without realizing it. A second engineer shifted his weight and found something useful to look at in his clipboard. The team lead came forward with his rehearsed expression and his pre-formed sentences and his body language of a man presenting himself for inspection. Taro moved past most of it. His eyes tracked the corridor ahead. 8 people. He had been told 9. The 9th person was at the far end of the corridor. She was crouched beside the eastern wall, with one knee resting on a folded cloth she had placed on the floor. A laser measurement tool in her right hand pressed against the baseboard. A worn leather journal open across her left thigh. Her natural hair was pinned back with a wide strip of fabric in deep gold and burgundy. 2 or 3 coils had escaped at her temple and she had not bothered to push them back. She was writing something. She finished it, checked the reading again. wrote it a second time. She did not turn around. Taro Min stopped walking. He did not decide to stop. His feet simply reached a point in the corridor and declined to continue. Behind him, Tenobei stopped 2 steps later. Senyo Park stopped immediately. The team lead, mid-sentence about preliminary structural findings, stopped because everyone else had stopped and the mathematics of the moment were suddenly very clear. The corridor went silent. Zina Kora did not turn around. She sat back slightly on her heel, tilted her head at the reading on the laser tool with the expression of someone considering a number that required a second opinion, picked up her pencil, made another notation. The silence stretched to 5 seconds, 8 seconds, 10. Then, without standing, without turning, her voice moved down the corridor with the calm precision of someone who had redirected traffic many times before and found it largely unremarkable. I need this corridor clear for the next 40 minutes, whoever you are. The team lead made a sound, a very small sound. The sound of a man watching something happen that he did not have a category for and was rapidly understanding was above his pay grade. Taro did not move. He was 38 years old. He had rebuilt this organization twice from near ruin. He had sat across tables from men who wanted him dead and poured their tea. He had never, in 11 years of running this world, stood in a corridor and felt the specific quality of sensation that was currently moving through his chest. She still had not looked up. 30 women last night. Every one of them had looked at him before they looked at anything else. This woman had not looked at him once. And Taro Min, who had been unmoved by everything for longer than he cared to calculate, felt something in his chest pull taut like a wire that had just remembered it was connected to something. He turned and walked back toward the elevator. His footsteps were even. His face was composed. Every person in that corridor was watching him and reading nothing. Only Tenobei, falling into step behind him, caught the barely there pause before Taro pressed the elevator button, the half second where his hand hovered. It was nothing. It was everything. Tenno kept his eyes forward and kept his thoughts to himself. Downstairs in the private basement office his team had already prepared, Daro Kim was waiting with coffee and a folder of acquisition documents. He rose when Taro entered and then paused. His small, watchful eyes moved over Taro's face the way they always did, reading the temperature before the conversation began. Daro Kim had been doing this for 17 years and he was very good at it. What he read now, he filed quietly behind his expression and said nothing about. Not yet. Before we go any further into Taro Min's world, pause with me for just a second. Where in the world are you watching this from right now? Drop your city in the comments. Because this story is being watched from places I never expected and I want to know exactly where you are. Zina Kora's apartment in Mapogu told the story she never told out loud. The corkboard took up most of the east wall. 8 years of careful, quiet work pinned to it in sections. Company names, shell structures, filing dates, a web of financial connections that she had been untangling thread by thread since the night she sat beside her father's hospital bed and listened to him say he was sorry. He had nothing to be sorry for. That was the thing that had never left her. Her father had been meticulous. His designs were flawless. The building that bore his name in the inquiry report, the building that collapsed and took 11 lives with it, had been built correctly to his specifications. It was rebuilt incorrectly after his final inspection by a contractor who had paid the right people to look the other way. When the walls came down, there was only one name attached to the project that the inquiry needed. Her father's name was clean, documented, and completely available. Zina had been 24 years old. She had sat in that inquiry chamber and watched a man's life's work be surgically removed from him while the people responsible filed quietly out of the room. She had built her career like a monument. Every flawless project, every impeccable report, every recommendation from a client who said her name with respect. These were arguments she was making on her father's behalf to a world that had already delivered its verdict without sufficient evidence. She was not rebuilding his name. She was proving it was never broken. The Hansung Tower contract had arrived 8 months after she first identified the shell company structure, connecting the original building's financing to the contractor network. She had not applied for it. It had found her. Zuri Maku had sat across from her at that same kitchen table when Zina told her what she had found, and Zuri had not said anything for almost a full minute. That was how Zina knew it was serious. Zuri was not a person who ran out of words. "You know whose building that is now," Zuri said finally. "I know. Zina. I know who he is." Zuri looked at her with the specific expression she reserved for moments when Zina was being brilliant and reckless simultaneously. "And the files you need are inside his building. On the 24th floor, East Wing storage, physical copies that were never digitized." Zina turned her pencil between her fingers twice. "I am a structural engineer. I have a legitimate contract. I have every professional reason to be on every floor of that building." Zuri was quiet again. Then she reached across the table and touched the strip of kente on Zina's wrist. Gold and black, the colors of her father's people. The colors he had worn the day he received his engineering license, 26 years old and certain that honest work was its own protection. "He would not want you in danger," Zuri said softly. Zina turned her wrist and held Zuri's hand for a moment. "He would want the truth." She let go, picked up her pencil, turned back to her blueprints. She was going in. He came back the next morning. Taro Min told himself it was because the East Wing storage access needed to be confirmed in person. He told himself this while choosing a route through the building that passed the 24th floor corridor. He told himself this while noting, before he consciously registered that he was noting it, that her equipment case was already open near the eastern wall. She was standing this time, reading something in her field journal. Her blazer was off, folded over the handle of her equipment case. Her sleeves were rolled to the elbow with the neat, precise fold of someone who had done it 10,000 times. She was mouthing numbers quietly to herself as she read. Taro stopped at the corridor entrance. Behind him, Tenno-bai stopped without comment. This was becoming a pattern, and Tenno-bai, who had an exceptional relationship with patterns, was filing it carefully. She looked up this time. Not because she heard him, because she had reached the end of a section in her notes and looked up as a natural punctuation, the way people do when they pause between thoughts. Her eyes found him across the corridor with no particular ceremony. She looked at him the way she looked at a structural reading, direct, specific, and complete within about 4 seconds. Then she returned to her journal. He walked the full length of the corridor slowly. She did not track him. She was back in her journal, turning a page, running 2 fingers along a measurement notation with the focused attention of someone who was exactly where their mind needed to be. He reached the eastern wall 3 meters from where she stood, checked the storage room door himself. It had been authorized, as instructed. He put his hand on the door frame and looked into the room without entering. Boxes of physical files, archived documents from the previous tenancy, organized into dated sections along the shelving units. Behind him, her voice arrived without warning. The eastern wall between storage rooms 2 and 3 has a load variance. It is within code, but it is at the upper limit. Previous occupants may have modified the internal partition without structural sign-off. He turned. She was looking at her journal, not at him. But she was talking to him. He could tell because there was nobody else in the corridor. "You found that this morning," he said. "Yesterday." She turned a page. "I flagged it in my daily notes. It will be in the formal report." He stood there for a moment. "You flagged it yesterday and said nothing." She looked up at him then, fully, calm and direct. "I said something, in my report, which is the appropriate channel for that information." Taro Min had not been told what to do with his own building since he bought his first property at 26 years old. He found, to his considerable surprise, that he was not annoyed. He was something else entirely, something that arrived in the vicinity of his chest and stayed there even after he turned and walked back down the corridor. Tenobe watched him press the elevator button and noted for the second consecutive morning that small, hovering pause. Just under a second. The pause of a man whose mind was still somewhere else when his hand moved. Tenobe pressed his lips together and said nothing. It was the third day when it happened. The rest of the assessment team had wrapped at 6 in the evening. Zina stayed. This was not unusual. She routinely worked an extra hour after the team cleared out because the quality of her thinking improved when the ambient noise of other people's presence was removed from a space. She was in the common area near the large windows, cross-referencing 2 sets of measurements against a reference diagram pinned to the low table when she heard the elevator open behind her. She did not turn, but when no footsteps followed for several seconds, she said without looking up, "If you are going to stand there, you may as well sit down." A pause. Then the sound of a single chair shifting. He sat down across the table from her. She finished her current annotation before she looked up. When she did, he was watching her with that expression she had cataloged over the past 2 days. The one that sat somewhere between assessment and something less named. "Your team is gone," he said. "I know. You stayed. I noticed." She picked up her pencil. "The Eastern Wall variants I mentioned. I want to review the original construction permits before I submit the preliminary report. The physical copies should be in the archive room. I can have them pulled for you tonight." She looked at him across the table. Something in his offer registered as more than administrative. He seemed to notice this at the same time she did. A small silence opened between them that neither of them hurried to fill. "You do not need to be here at this hour," she said, not as a dismissal, as a genuine observation. "Neither do you. I am working. So am I." She looked at him for a long moment. "What exactly are you working on at 7 in the evening in a building that your operations team manages entirely without your physical presence?" He held her gaze, said nothing. She tilted her head slightly. "Right." She went back to her documents, but the corner of her mouth had moved by approximately 3 millimeters, and she directed the resulting expression toward her paperwork instead of at him, which Taro Min filed as one of the more interesting things that had happened to him in recent memory. They worked in parallel silence for 20 minutes. Or rather, she worked, and he sat across from her with documents he was not reading, in a silence that felt entirely unlike every other silence in his life. Every other silence in his life had weight, the weight of what was not being said because it was dangerous to say it, the weight of what had been agreed without words between men who understood the cost of speaking directly. This silence had none of that. This silence simply existed. It was warm the way a room is warm when someone you trust is in it. He had not felt that in so long that he sat very still, afraid in some irrational and completely uncharacteristic way that if he moved, it would end. When she finally packed her documents into her field case and stood, he stood also. She noticed and said nothing about it. At the elevator, she pressed the button, and they waited side by side in the particular stillness of 2 people who have just discovered they are standing closer than protocol would normally allow, and are both making the decision not to step back. The elevator arrived. She stepped in, turned. For the first time since he had walked into this building 3 days ago, she looked at him first. "Thank you," she said, "for the chair." The doors closed. Taro Min stood in front of the elevator for a full 4 seconds before he became aware that he was smiling. It was a small thing, barely there, but Tenobe, appearing from the far end of the corridor, saw it. He had not seen that expression on Taro Min's face in 11 years. He was not certain he had a name for it anymore. Daro Kim had been in this business long enough to know that the most dangerous problems were never the ones that announced themselves. The ones that announced themselves were manageable. You saw them coming, you calculated the response, you applied the appropriate pressure at the appropriate time. Order was restored. The dangerous problems were the quiet ones, the ones that wore ordinary faces and arrived through legitimate doors and gave you no particular reason to act until the window for acting cleanly had already closed. He had been watching Zina Kora since before she submitted her firm's application. He had recognized the name immediately, Kora, the daughter of the engineer from the original Hansung Tower inquiry. He had known who she was before her credentials were verified, before her firm was contacted, before the contract was offered. He had known because it was his job to know these things, and he had been very good at his job for a very long time. What he had not known was who had arranged for her application to arrive. That gap in his knowledge bothered him more than the woman herself. He looked across the table at Sanyo Park, who was young and ambitious and currently operating under the impression that Daro Kim trusted him. "The 24th floor," Daro said. "The East Wing storage. Tell me every time she goes near it." Daro Kim is making decisions about Zina's safety without telling Taro a single word, while Taro is 2 floors above her feeling something he has not felt in over a decade. I know exactly how you feel right now. Let it out in the comments, because this man is about to do something unforgivable, and he is going to call it loyalty. Sanyo Park left. Daro Kim sat alone for a while longer. He was not worried about Zina Kora. A woman with a legitimate contract and a professional mission was manageable. What worried him was what he had seen in Taro Min's face when he returned from the upper floors that second morning. Daro Kim had known Taro since he was a boy. He had watched him build something out of the rubble his father left behind, and do it with a discipline that bordered on the inhuman. He had watched him refuse every woman, every softness, every opening that might have made him less than impenetrable. He had never watched him come back from a building check twice in a row and say nothing about what he found there. That was the real problem, not Zina Kora's mission. Taro Min's attention. Daro refilled his glass, set it down, did not drink from it. He would manage this. He had managed harder problems than a woman with a dead father's grievance and a structural engineering license. By the end of the first week, the team lead had begun to notice that the building's owner arrived on the 24th floor more frequently than the acquisition of any property typically demanded. By the end of the second week, the team lead had stopped noticing because it had simply become the shape of the day. Taro Min was not a man given to explaining himself. He came each morning, he walked the floor, he found reasons to be in the general vicinity of wherever Zina's work had moved that day. On Tuesday, she was in the West Wing reviewing ceiling load assessments, and he approved a revision to the ventilation specifications that he could have signed off on from his car. On Thursday, she was on the 26th floor, and he had an unexpected meeting with his legal team on the 26th floor. Tanobe said nothing. He was paid to say nothing about certain things. He was beginning to feel that this particular thing was accumulating into a category that would eventually require a conversation. On the Friday of the second week, Taro brought tea. Not as a gesture, he had simply stopped at the traditional tea house on Yanghua Road that he had been walking past for 6 years without entering, and walked in and left with 2 cups in paper sleeves. He arrived on the 24th floor and set one on the table beside Zina's equipment case without remark. She looked at the cup, looked at him. "Zhongtong cha," he said. "Traditional roasted barley. The woman who runs the tea house has been making it the same way for 40 years. Zina picked up the cup, held it in both hands, inhaled. It smelled of roasted grain and warmth and something that reminded her, in a way she could not immediately explain, of her father's workshop on a cold evening. He had kept a small kettle on a hot plate. He had always pressed a cup into her hands when she came to sit beside him while he worked. She took a sip and said nothing for a moment. "It is good," she said quietly. Taro sat down across from her. He did not pretend to have documents this time. They talked for the first time without architecture between them. She asked about the tea house, and he told her about the woman who ran it, Halmione. Everyone called her grandmother, though nobody knew if she actually had grandchildren. He had overheard her once telling a young customer that the secret to good barley tea was patience, that you could not rush the roasting, that everything worth having required you to wait for it at the right temperature. Zina listened to this and smiled into her tea. A real smile, the kind that arrived from somewhere deep and did not ask permission. Taro watched it happen, and something in his chest responded with a warmth so specific and so sudden that he pressed his hand flat against the table to give himself something concrete to feel. She looked up and caught him looking. He did not look away. This was new. Every other time he had been caught looking at anything, he had recalibrated immediately, made the look mean something administrative, something professional. He did not do that now. He held her gaze and let it mean what it meant. She held it back. That evening, Taro sat across from Daro Kim at a private dinner that had been scheduled for 3 weeks. The tradition was old. Every month, Taro sat with his senior men and poured for them in the proper order, elder first, as was correct. It was one of the rituals he had kept from his upbringing, a Confucian courtesy his father had insisted on, and that Taro had maintained not out of sentiment, but because it communicated something important about the structure of his world. He poured for Daro Kim first, then for the others. Daro accepted the cup and watched Taro's face across the table with his small, careful eyes. "You are not here tonight," Daro said. "I am always here. Your body is." Daro sipped, said nothing more. She went into the storage room on the 11th day of the contract. Most of the team had gone. Zina had authorization for extended building access, and she had been patient about using it. To direct a path to the East Wing storage in her early days would have been visible. She had professional instincts and personal ones, and they were both telling her the same thing: move like someone doing exactly what her contract said she was doing, until the moment came. The moment came on a Tuesday evening when the building was quiet, and the only footsteps on the 24th floor were hers. She worked through the first 3 sections methodically: construction permits, material specifications, contractor invoices. She photographed each relevant document with a small camera she carried in the inside pocket of her field case. Her hands were steady. Her breathing was even. She had rehearsed this enough times in her apartment that the physical act of it felt almost ordinary. The 4th section stopped her. It was labeled simply with a date: 14 years ago. Inside it, beneath a set of standard financial reconciliation documents, was a single sheet of paper that had been placed face down at the bottom of the folder. Either by accident or by the specific intent of someone who wanted it inaccessible without being absent, she turned it over. It was a silent investor disclosure, a private financial agreement between the original construction contractor network and a holding company. The holding company's name was unfamiliar to her, but beneath it, in the registered director field, written in clean formal type, was a name she knew: Hansung Min. She read it twice, 3 times. Hansung Min, Taro Min's father. The storage room was very quiet. Zina became aware of her own heartbeat in a way she was not usually aware of it. She stood very still with the document in her hands and let the full weight of what she was holding settle into her body the way cold water settles when you have been standing in it long enough to stop feeling it as a shock. Her father's name, erased by a contractor protected by a financial network that included Hansung Min, Taro's father, the man whose building she was standing in. The man whose son had been bringing her barley tea every morning for a week and looking at her across tables with the specific quality of attention she had been trying very hard not to name. She photographed the document, replaced it exactly as she found it, closed the folder, returned the box to its position on the shelf. She picked up her field case, walked to the door, stopped with her hand on the frame. Down the corridor, through the glass wall of the building, Seoul burned with its 10,000 lights, completely indifferent. She pressed her left wrist briefly to her mouth, felt the woven kente against her lips, gold and black, her father's colors. Then she walked out. She told Zuri that night. Zuri sat on the kitchen counter with both hands wrapped around a mug and listened without interruption, which was its own kind of answer about the gravity of what she was hearing. When Zina finished, the kitchen was silent for a long moment. "His father," Zuri said. "His father, not him." Zina looked at her. The money that protected that contractor ran through his father's company. His family name is on that document. Zuri was quiet again. Then carefully, "What are you going to do?" "I am going to complete the contract, submit the report, take what I found through a proper legal channel and walk away." "And him?" Zina pressed her thumb to the kente strip on her wrist. "He is not part of this. What I feel is not part of this." Zuri studied her for a long moment. "Zina, what you feel?" "I know what I said." Zuri placed her mug down very gently. "I need you to hear yourself." But Zina had already decided. She was excellent at deciding things. Her decisions were architecture, load-bearing, carefully calculated, designed to hold weight. She would be professional. She would be correct. She would give him nothing more to read in her face. The next morning she was professional. Completely, precisely professional. She greeted him with the appropriate courtesy of a contractor addressing a building owner. She answered his questions with the specific economy of someone whose time is directed entirely toward the task at hand. When he arrived with 2 cups of barley tea, she accepted one with a polite thank you and set it on the table and did not look at it again. He noticed. She knew he noticed. She kept her eyes on her documents. He sat down. He did not pretend to have paperwork this time either. He simply sat across from her and watched her work for a moment and said quietly, "Did something happen?" She did not look up. "I am simply focused. The preliminary report is due Friday." A pause. "Right." He stood. He took his tea. He left. In the elevator going down, Taro Min pressed 2 fingers to his mouth and stood with his eyes closed for the full descent. Something had changed. He did not know what, but the quality of her distance was different from before. Before, her focus had been full and internal and pointed purely at her work. This distance had a texture. It was constructed. He could feel the construction in it the way you feel a wall that has been recently built in a place that was open before. He did not know yet what was on the other side. Sanyo Park sent the message at 9:47 on Wednesday evening. 3 words. She found it. Daro Kim read it in the back of his car. He sat for a moment looking at the screen. Then he made 2 calls. The first was short. The second was shorter. He did not call Taro Min. This was the decision he would later understand as the one that cost him everything. But in that moment, in the back of that car with those 3 words on his screen, it felt like management. Like the reasonable, experienced response of a man who had been protecting this organization for 17 years and understood that some things were better resolved before they became conversations. What Daro arranged was not violent. He was too precise for that and too aware that violence against a credentialed foreign professional in his employer's building was the kind of problem that did not stay manageable. What he arranged was a professional discrediting. Documentation, selectively gathered, suggesting that Zina Kora's firm had accepted the Hansung Tower contract under a conflict of interest, given her family's connection to the original building inquiry. A formal complaint filed through the right channels to the right regulatory body. Enough to pull her access, invalidate her report, and remove her from the building before she could act on whatever she had found. He had used this tool before. It was clean, it was deniable, it worked. What Daro had not accounted for was Tenno Bay. Tenno Bay was paid to notice things. He had noticed Sanyo Park's phone usage patterns over the past 3 weeks. The timing of his private calls, the way he moved through the building when he thought nobody was tracking his route. Tenno had said nothing because he was waiting for the shape of it to become clear. On Thursday morning, the shape became very clear. Tenno walked into Taro's private office and closed the door. He laid out what he knew in the precise economic language he used for important things. No extra words, no speculation, only what he had observed, verified, and confirmed. When he finished, the office was very quiet. Taro Min sat behind his desk and did not move for a full 30 seconds. Tenno had seen him angry before. Anger in Taro Min was not a raised voice. It was the opposite. It was a quality of stillness so complete and so cold that the room itself seemed to lower in temperature. It was the stillness of a decision being made that was going to be very expensive for somebody. "Get me Senyo Park," Taro said. Tano left. Taro stood, walked to the window, looked at the city below. Somewhere in that city, in a building with his name on the acquisition documents, a woman he had been finding reasons to bring tea to every morning was about to have her professional reputation systematically dismantled by a man Taro had trusted for 17 years, on the basis of information connected to his own father. Information Daro Kim had known about since before Zina walked through the front doors. He placed his palm flat against the glass. Taro Min is standing at that window, and he knows everything. He knows about his father. He knows about Daro. He knows what Zina came looking for. And he has to decide right now what kind of man he is. What do you think he does? Tell me in the comments before we find out together. He called Daro Kim first. Not to confront him. To give him the specific quality of a phone call that let a man know the reckoning was coming and precisely how long he had before it arrived. He gave Daro Kim 4 words. "We will speak tonight." He heard Daro's silence on the other end and understood that Daro understood. Then he went to find Zina. She had received the formal notification 12 minutes earlier, a regulatory body query regarding a potential conflict of interest on the Hansung Tower contract. Her access credentials had been suspended pending review. She was required to vacate the building within 48 hours. She had read it standing in the corridor with her phone in both hands and understood immediately that this was not a regulatory process. It was a mechanism. Somebody had built it and pointed it at her. She knew exactly who. She was placing her equipment methodically into her case when the elevator opened and Taro Min walked out. She looked at him across the corridor. He looked at her. "You know," she said. It was not a question. "I found out this morning." "How much do you know?" "Everything." He stopped 3 meters from her. "The document. My father's name, what Daro arranged, all of it." The corridor held them in a silence that was the kind you do not rush. Zina picked up her case handle, set it down again. Her jaw was set, her eyes were direct. She had the expression of someone who has prepared for a conversation and found that the actual version of it feels nothing like the rehearsal. "You came here for the document," Taro said. "Yes. You knew about my father before you took the contract. I knew about the holding company, not the name behind it, not until 11 days in. He absorbed this. And after you knew the name," her chin lifted slightly, "I decided to walk away. Take what I found through proper legal channels. Leave your building and your organization and your morning tea out of it." Something crossed his face. It was too fast for most people to catch. Tenno Bay, standing at the elevator, caught it. A single flash of something that was not anger and was not calculation and was not anything Tenno had seen on that face before. "Why?" Taro said quietly. Zina looked at him for a long moment. "You know why?" He made his choice. He picked up his phone and called his legal team. He revoked the regulatory complaint. He restored her credentials. He did this in front of her, in the corridor, with Tino Bay as witness, and he did not explain it to anyone or frame it as anything other than what it was, a choice, his own, inherited from nobody. They sat by the windows, not at a table with documents between them, not in the professional arrangement of contractor and building owner. Just 2 chairs pulled to the glass, soul burning gold and amber outside, and the particular quality of 2 people who have run out of things to hide behind and are sitting in the reality of that. Zina told him about her father, not the summary, the real version, the workshop and the kettle on the hot plate, the way he used to spread blueprints across the floor and let her trace the lines with her finger when she was small, the sound he made when he laughed, the way he sat in that inquiry chamber and accepted what was said about him with a dignity so complete that she had not understood until years later that the dignity was not acceptance. It was refusal. He had refused to break in front of the people who had broken him. Taro listened. He did not offer anything while she spoke. He did not fill the pauses or reassemble them into comfort. He simply stayed in each one until she was ready to continue. This was, she would think later, the most significant thing he did. All the other things were gestures. This was understanding. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "My father made decisions for this organization that I have spent 15 years inheriting. Some of them I have kept because they were correct. Some of them I have kept because the machinery was already in motion, and stopping it required more than I had at certain moments." He paused. "This one I will not keep." He reached into the inside pocket of his jacket and took out her field journal. She had left it on the table when she was packing her case. He opened it to a blank page at the back. He wrote his father's full name, Hansung Min. Beneath it, he wrote his own, Min Taro. Beneath both, he wrote a single sentence in Korean, then translated it aloud for her as he wrote it. "This family acknowledges what was taken. This is the beginning of returning it." He folded the page precisely, the way someone folds something that matters, and placed it in her hand. If this story is landing with you the way it is landing with me right now, this is the moment to subscribe, because this channel is building something, story by story, and you do not want to come back for part 2 and find out you missed the entire journey. Hit subscribe. It costs you nothing and it means everything. Zina held the paper. She did not open it. She pressed it flat between both palms, the way you press something you want to feel the weight of. Outside, Seoul was shifting from gold to deep blue. The city below was beginning its night, the lights coming on one by one in the towers and the streets and the windows of the million ordinary lives running parallel to theirs. She turned and looked at him. He was already looking at her. She was not ready to call it what it was. Not tonight, with her father's name still warm in her chest and the weight of 2 years of careful work sitting in her hands in a single folded page. But she did not move away from him either. And in the particular grammar of Taro Min's world, where the most important communications were the ones that did not require words, that was everything. Before we reach the end of this episode, share this video with somebody who needs to see a love story built on something real. Not performance, not strategy, just two people choosing each other when every other option would have been easier. Send it to them right now. They will thank you later. After Zina left, Tenobei came in. He had been waiting. He always waited at exactly the right distance. The skill was not proximity. The skill was knowing the precise moment when the conversation that needed to happen could finally be heard. He sat down across from Taro at the window. In 12 years, he had sat across from Taro Min approximately 4 times. Each time had been significant. "There is something you need to know about Rami Shin," he said. Tenno laid it out. Rami Shin had known about the Hansung Tower files for 3 years. Her mother had been a secondary witness in the original building inquiry, a colleague of Zina's father who had tried to present contradicting evidence and been professionally discredited in the same motion that cleared the contractor. Rami's mother and Zina's father had suffered parallel destructions at the hands of the same network, in the same season, through the same mechanism. Rami had found Zina's firm 2 years ago, had followed her work quietly. When the Hansung Tower acquisition finalized, Rami Shin had been the one to ensure that Zina Kora's firm received the contract application, not to destroy Taro, to force him to confront the thing his father had buried and left him standing on. She had known that if he ever truly saw Zina, he would choose correctly. She had believed in him when he had stopped believing in himself. Taro Min sat with this for a long time. Outside the window, Seoul turned fully into night. Somewhere in this city, Zina Kora was in her apartment with a folded page in her hands and a corkboard full of work that had finally arrived at something that looked like the beginning of justice. Somewhere in this city, Daro Kim was sitting in a room waiting for a conversation he had earned. And somewhere, in a direction Taro had not yet looked, the people connected to his father's financial network were watching what had happened tonight and deciding what it meant for them. The story was not finished. It had only just told him its real name. In the underground parking structure of Hansung Tower, Daro Kim made a phone call. He spoke briefly. he said only what needed to be said. She found it, and he let her walk out with it. We have a problem. He ended the call, stood in the fluorescent silence of the parking structure with his phone in his hand. Across Seoul, in a room the camera had never entered and a face the audience had not yet seen, someone set down a glass, unhurried, deliberate, and began making arrangements. Taro Min stopped at the one woman who never looked up, and in doing so, he uncovered something buried so deep beneath his father's empire that pulling it free is going to shake the foundations of everything he built on top of it. Daro Kim is no longer managing a problem, he is one. And the person on the other end of that phone call is someone we have not met yet, someone who has been in the background of this entire story since before the first frame. Part 2 is coming, and if you are not subscribed right now, you are going to miss the moment this entire story turns completely inside out. Subscribe, leave a comment, tell me what you think Taro Min does next, because Part 2 begins exactly where the real danger starts. If this story pulled you in, you already know this is where you belong. More stories like this drop here every single day. Don't miss the next one.